It is the moment some people desperately hope for, and others quite simply dread. The moment when a birth mother and the child she gave up for adoption find one another after years of separation. I want you to see something. This is a picture of Ava Hansen at one of the happiest moments in her life. What you can't tell by looking at this photo is that at the time it was taken, she was pregnant. She was carrying a child that she would soon give up for adoption. Well, today, 42 years later, mother and daughter will meet for the very first time right here with us on our show. But we'll also hear why happy reunions are the last thing on the minds of some birth parents and the children they gave up for adoption. When does the search for biological roots lead to closure? And when does it open old wounds? That's what we're going to talk about today. Stay with us. Sandy Ililonga never wants to meet the child that she gave up for adoption when she was just 15. And when confronted by her own birth mother years later, it was a devastating experience for her. She now believes strongly in her right to privacy. Rita Staff, this lady, you cannot tell by looking at her, she's a convicted felon. She's serving 5 years probation for illegally accessing sealed adoption files. After she was able to locate a child she gave up for adoption, she became a professional adoption searcher. She says she'll use any means necessary to access files for her clients, even if that happens to mean breaking the law. Lots to talk about. Here to share their stories are Rita Staff and Sandy Ililonga. Welcome, ladies. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Now, Sandy, we said that when your birth mom contacted you because you were put up for adoption, that you didn't really want to hear from her. What happened?
Well, I was contacted by a search organization.
Mm-hmm.
What they had actually done was contacted my adoptive mom and said that my birth mom was looking for me, and she passed along that information. And I told them straight away when I returned the call, look, I'm not interested. Thanks anyway, but no thanks.
Not even curious?
No.
Had a good life, you were happy?
Well, it isn't the wish or the desire of every adoptee to look for the people who were present at their birth. I didn't feel that there was something missing that the people who produced me were going to be able to fill for me. So, there may be mild curiosity, at points in people's lives where they wonder, well, who do I look like?
Right.
Or, why do I like this? But it wasn't enough to drive me out into the night looking.
But
I just wasn't interested.
You did meet her.
Well, yes, after a 2-hour sales pitch from a search group, and I will admit that they're good salespeople, and I will admit that I didn't follow my better judgment. I did agree to meet this woman who said and probably did only want to know that I was okay, and, things were fine with me. However, spent the next year and a half really insinuating herself into my life and wanting to be my mother again. And I didn't need that, and I wasn't prepared for that. And I wasn't really sure how to deal with that. It's very difficult when someone's in your face who is saying to you, I've been wanting to know you all these years, and I've been wondering where you were, and I'm so glad that I found you. It's very difficult to look in their face and say, but that's nice, but I don't know you. I don't feel the love that you feel. I have a mom and a dad and siblings and a dog, and
Your life is
okay the way
complete.
I am.
You didn't need that, as you say, that missing link. But what about the child that you gave up? You don't have concerns about that child as much as your mother said she wanted to make sure you were okay. You don't have those kinds of thoughts?
No, I don't have concerns about that child. At 15, I found myself making an unwise decision with someone's son that resulted in the birth of a child. I was only adopted when I was 12 years old. So I only had 3 years of trying to figure out what a family is to begin with. And I definitely wasn't ready to turn around and be someone's mother. So I made an incredibly wise decision to place this child with someone who was ready to parent, who was seeking to parent. And I have every confidence that this person's life has gone as good as it could. But I'm not responsible if it wasn't utopia.
Rita's having a hard time with this, so I want to get to your story now because you gave up a child for adoption. You found her.
Yes.
And it turned out to be a more positive experience. But even your daughter, when you located her, wasn't that high on meeting mom.
Well, if you were given up at birth and you didn't know why, and you were separated from your natural environment, and you were 17 years old, and your parents had gone through a divorce, and your father passed away, wouldn't you feel a little apprehension? I think most adoptees do. We call it adoption syndrome, which basic definition means a sense of anger and frustration over being rejected at birth. And sometimes it's a very conscious thing that adoptees deal with, and sometimes it's more on a subconscious level. But many, if not most, deal with it at one time or another in their lives.
I disagree. I disagree.
Not all.
I have been working in the field of adoption. I'm a child advocate. I've been working in the field of adoption for 15 years, not to mention now my, 40-year experience with adoption. And although, granted, there are people who feel what Rita is describing, that is not the majority. And I'm not
You can't say that, Sandy. You can't say that's not the majority.
I can't say that.
Sandy, you don't have anger that your natural mom, your birth mom, gave you up.
No.
There's none of that.
And especially now after having met her and realizing that that was not going to be a good environment for a child.
Everyone's rights in this country need to be addressed. And right now, Sandy's rights are the only ones being addressed. People who want to know don't have a uniform, comfortable, legal way to seek each other out. I want my rights recognized with the law as well as those, and I recognize that there are people who do not want to be found, both adoptees and birth mothers, for whatever reason. But there are many of us. I'm not going to say the majority because I can't speak for the majority, nor can Sandy, nor can anyone else in this movement. But I'm going to say that of the hundreds of adoption searches that I have worked on, most have turned out very well. Most people wanted to be found, and people who come to me obviously want to know. Their rights are precluded by the laws that presently exist in 48 states in this country, and it's not right.
Well, today on our show, we're going to meet some people who are searching for the children that they gave up, and also some people who share your views, Sandy, that don't want to be found. So we'll continue with your story and take it out to the audience just as soon as we come back. Talking about adoption today, and we're back with Sandy Ilalonga, who wants no contact with her birth mother, and Rita Staff, who believes that any and all steps should be taken to open the adoption files. Can I ask you before we proceed, Rita, you're wearing a blue ribbon. Is there any significance to that?
This is an MIA ribbon. It's from CIRA, the Council for Equal Rights in Adoption, based in New York City. We also have Adoption Crossroads, which is a search support group under the umbrella group of CIRA. And the MIA is a missing in adoption ribbon, and we wear it for all of those who are missing in adoption and who choose not to be.
Well, I have a gentleman here. Would you stand up, please, sir? Because you have a personal story about this.
Yeah, I do. My sister is adopted, and one day her natural mother showed up at our doorstep. My sister is a very emotionally complete person, Rita. She wants nothing to do with her natural mother. And it really caused a lot of turmoil in our family, to the point of this woman kept hounding us, wanting to be a part of my sister's life so much that we moved. I mean, it caused a lot of problems. I don't believe that these files should be open to any nutcase who, whether she had good reasons or not in the beginning that she had to give up her child. That's my sister, that's our family, and this person came in with no warning. Maybe there should be some kind of intermediator or something like that, but I don't know. That wasn't it.
What about a case like that, Rita?
I would like to address that although I personally am not looking for a child that I placed, nor am I interested in a relationship with my birth mother, I believe and I will fight to the death to defend the right of people to search. But there is a way to do it without stepping on me or the next guy out there that isn't interested, and that's a voluntary mutual consent registry.
Yeah, but
where all parties to an adoption come forward on their own, and when they have all come forward saying, I wish to reunite, then the information is exchanged that allows them to do it. That way, if I'm not interested, you don't put me in a position where I have to reject somebody just to protect what I was promised.
Rita, what about a case like this gentleman here where it's not only his privacy, but his entire family was really put through a lot of
It
trauma?
really has very little to do with him. He's not the adoptee. I respect his opinion, and many people have that opinion. I feel that people who don't want to know don't need to know, but a simple no should do it. When I do searches, we work a lot in counseling people on how to contact and how to accept no if that's the choice.
And I feel that I should not be ferreted out or stalked out so that I have to say no. If I know that there's a mutual consent registry in my state, that's where I go. There's my yes.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I am a birth mother who has been reunited with my daughter. I found her, but she had previously looked for me when she turned 18, and she got scared away because she heard through a grapevine that there was another woman that had given birth to her. She called this woman. She got scared off, and that stopped her from ever searching for me again, just because we don't have the open adoption things that should be there nowadays. And I do feel that Sandy has a lot of anger inside of her because she does have that rejection, whether she wants to admit it or not. She does.
You guys are buying into that. I will let you respond just as soon as we come back.
May I speak to my anger?
Excuse me?
I would like to address that. There is anger, and the anger is that people are very willing to walk over the rights of other human beings, the basic fundamental right of being left alone. That is what I'm angry about. There's nothing personal here, but it is very hurtful to know that it's all right to stalk and harass and do a sales pitch on somebody just because it's adoption. That's really sad.
The child that you placed for adoption, if that child called you today and said, you're my birth mom, I want to meet you, what would you say?
I'm not interested.
Sandy, don't be a
No
hypocrite.
matter that,
because
what about
when we were
that
getting
child's
ready for the
needs?
show, Sandy said to the makeup person, I don't think I want to know. So you're being a hypocrite because you're saying one thing on camera and another thing off, Sandy. I don't think you're
Don't lie. Don't lie. What I said is that I don't think I would ever use a mutual consent registry. I have never wanted.
That's not what you said. You said, I don't think I want to know.
Now you're a convicted felon and a liar too. That's sad.
Well, now she's expressing her opinion, Sandy.
wrong.
What I want to know from you is your right to privacy. Does that supersede your child's right to feel some closure in his or her life?
Supersede anyone's right.
But that's what you're saying.
Yours ends where mine begins, is what I'm saying.
All right, we're going to be back in just a few minutes, and when we return, we'll meet a mother in search of a child she gave up years ago and an adoptee who never wants to meet her birth parents. Stay with us. Today we're talking about whether open access to files can help birth parents and children of adoption finally reach some sort of resolution. Barbara Manbeck and her boyfriend Bob had a son together. They gave up that son for adoption. Now they eventually married other people, went their separate ways. But just last year, Bob and Barbara finally got back together. And now they hope to find that son that they gave up. Adele Verstig is an adoptee who has never met her birth parents. She wants to keep it that way, saying the right to know ends where her right to privacy begins. Please welcome Barbara Manbeck and Adele Verstig. Hi, both of you. Barbara, you're searching for this little boy that you never got to hold.
I did hold him. I was in the hospital for a week with him. So I did feed him and hold him that first week.
Even harder.
Yes.
Even harder. How is your search going?
After 5 or 6 years, it's still back to square one of knowing nothing. I have tried to go through vital statistics in the state of Virginia, which is where he was born. And they say that I don't have a good enough reason for them to contact him and ask him to call us to give him medical information. I sent them letters from my parents' doctors. All 4 grandparents have diabetes. Grandfathers both had strokes. My brother has Crohn's disease. My husband's niece has Crohn's disease. There is hypertension, numerous medical reasons. My husband has a rare blood type, and our son did have a blood transfusion that first week he was in the hospital.
So you're saying, aside from the emotional and love issues, you want this medical information to get to him because he needs it.
And they're saying, no, that's not good enough reason.
You never had any other children?
No, which is very common among, I'm finding out, birth mothers. A choice of a lot of it guilt, having given away a child, and how do you distinguish keeping one and giving one away. And
Adele, it's interesting because I know your situation where you don't want to be contacted by your birth parent.
Correct.
Barbara's searching desperately for her son. What can you tell her about what her son might be feeling?
Well, I guess one of the reasons that I'm here today is to say that not all adoptees are interested in making contact. That there is this idea of this pervasive jigsaw mentality, is what I call it. That people feel that, well, and this goes for both adoptees and birth parents, that there is a part of themselves that is missing. And until they find that part, whether it is the birth parent or the adoptee that they don't know, they will not be whole or complete. Well, for us,